Hello, Christian and Jesus Witches of YouTube. My name's Lena. I'm the host of the Jesus Witch podcast, and I'm outside today because it's an absolutely gorgeous day. You'll be able to hear my kids running around in the background. But I'm out here today to tell you a little bit of a story time, a witchy story time of my history with tarot. We're going to talk about like how I got started with tarot, the decks I like to use, how I incorporate Jesus in my tarot practice, and all of that good stuff. But before we jump into the story time, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And I'll also leave in the description of this video the link to my TikTok and Instagram so you can connect with me on other platforms. And then don't forget to check out the Jesus Witch podcast, which is on all podcasting platforms, and on here on YouTube. I upload new episodes every single Monday, and then here on YouTube I rebroadcast old episodes every single Friday. So be sure to subscribe and be able to so you can check those out. But anyway, enough of me talking. Let's jump into our story time of my history with tarot. If you've listened to the Jesus Witch podcast episode titled Meet Lena the Jesus Witch, you know that my witchy journey started when I, after I had my first baby Dexter, I started to get really into astrology, and after astrology came tarot. I kind of wanted to use tarot as a confirmation of astrology, asking basic yes or no questions, nothing really futuristic, just looking at energies. And I remember my mom was going on vacation with my little sister, and they were going to a little town that had this cute witchy shop in it, and I begged my mom to get me a Rider-Waite tarot deck. I was probably 19 at the time, maybe 18. No, definitely 19, because I had my first baby at 18, so he was about a year old when this happened. So I had asked her to go get me a tarot deck at this place that she was going, and she was so freaked out. My mom, my poor mother, she's a cradle Catholic. Now she's more into the witchy stuff, and she understands what I do with tarot. But before, she was like, "No, Lena, I don't want to buy you a tarot deck. That's from the devil." She got really, defensive about it. So I eventually convinced her, and I'm like, I really want this. I'm curious about it. It's something in curiosity that if you don't buy it for me, I'm gonna go somewhere else and buy it. So she ended up buying it for me at the metaphysical shop that she went to. And she actually got a tarot reading there. She was curious enough about tarot because I asked her for a deck that she got a reading, and she said it was really accurate. So that's why she didn't have as much of a qualm about buying me a deck. She did make me pay her back for it though. So that was that. But it was just a little Rider-Waite tarot deck, and I feel most people start with Rider-Waite. If I could go back and start with a different deck, I probably would have, just because I don't think the Rider-Waite captured me so much, if that makes sense. I would pull a card every here or there, and I just wouldn't really understand it, and then the images on the deck didn't help. I find tarot decks, for me personally, my tarot practice, I really need to connect with the imagery on the card, and I just didn't connect with Rider-Waite Smith's deck. So I would casually use it here and there. Again, if you would listen to the episode of Meet Lena the Jesus Witch of the Jesus Witch podcast, you would know that during my witchy beginning is when I kind of got wrapped up into a Christian cult of sorts called the International Church of Christ. And, they don't believe in tarot. They don't believe in any sort of divination. So as a devotion to God, I burnt my first Rider-Waite tarot deck. I thought that was the best thing to do. And so I burnt it. And for a long time, I thought that tarot was evil. I thought that it was a sin. I thought that it was something that you were opening a portal to hell, to a gateway. Things that I just genuinely don't believe in now. I was putting a lot of weird doctrine around tarot decks because of what I was being told. So I didn't use tarot for a while. I was in that church for about 3 years, so I didn't touch tarot for that whole time. I still dabbled in astrology. I never gave that one up because astrology is easier for me to justify being more Christian-y, because God created the stars. It tells us in the Bible how He hung the stars and He gave each of them a name. So I feel astrology is a little bit more justifiable with a Christian faith, but tarot definitely was not. So I put that aside for a while and I stopped reading tarot. Like I said, I was in the ICOC for about 3 years, and I didn't touch tarot at all throughout that time. And then I eventually left the church, thank God, because that was such a bad situation. But anyway, I left the church, and I didn't touch tarot again for a little while. But I was definitely curious about it. I was definitely curious about more witchy things. That was the time where I started to dabble into Christian spell work and manifestation and lighting candles. I was pregnant with my second baby, and Scott was my true huge huge witchy awakening. He like tapped into my intuition and like made me feel closer to spirit, like that whole like process of being pregnant with him, which I actually do have a whole podcast episode about that, of the Jesus Witch podcast. I'll link that one too. It's with my friend Ashley. We talk about like birth and like how it was like spiritual and our like spiritual experiences and the things that we experienced while like, you know, in labor and pregnancy that were more like witchy. So anyway, when I was pregnant with him, that was more of like my witchy awakening. So the way that Scott was my witchy awakening, so I'll do a whole other like story time about like Scott and his name and like the weird like spiritually things that were happening around this time. But right now I'm going to focus on tarot. So my mother-in-law and I were cleaning out her basement. I was pregnant, but she was nesting. It was really weird experience. But anyway, we were cleaning out her basement and, you know, we were looking through all of the things that were down there. And one of the things that we found in a box that belonged to all of my father-in-law was his old tarot deck. And this tarot deck was the 1989 Trisha Newell's Mythic Tarot. It is like a Hellenistic pagan deck. It is so freaking cool. Neither like my father-in-law or my like stepmother-in-law or my mother-in-law works with like Hellenistic deities. My mother-in-law is not spiritual at all, but my stepfather, my father-in-law and my stepmother-in-law are witchy people. It's great. Every time I go there, my father-in-law is like, Lena, look at these new crystals I have, and I keep them in my pocket, and it's like the cutest thing in the entire world. And my stepmother-in-law has her own altar and everything. They cast spells together. They're fun. But we had found his old tarot deck in my mother-in-law's basement. So Scott, my second baby, when he was in my belly, he would never move. I had I think it's called an anterior placenta, if I remember correctly, like when your placenta's on the outside, so there's a barrier between like your belly and the baby. So I never used to feel him kick, and it drove me crazy. Like I was always wondering like if he's okay, like why is he not moving? And it was like drove me absolutely insane, right? But this time when I found this tarot deck, he starts doing flips, like absolute backflips. And, you know, we were debating on like naming him Scott. So I took this tarot deck out and I said, yeah, do you want to be named Scott? And that was the first question I asked to it. And the 10 of Pentacles popped out. And I didn't know how to read tarot. Like I didn't know what tarot, these different meanings of the cards were, or any of that stuff. Now I know that the 10 of Pentacles means like family stability. But when I pulled the card out, it was just a picture of a guy and his wife and a toddler running around, which we had a toddler running around because we had Dexter. And then the mom was holding a little itty bitty baby, and we were about to have an itty bitty baby, and it looked just like our family. And I took that as like, yeah, this is a name that he wants. It's meant for us. And that was my reintroduction to tarot. That was when I was like, okay, tarot's really cool. I'm going to start working with this because it's interesting. And clearly, like, if you're working with the right deck, you can get decent answers. While I was pregnant with Scott, I started to pull tarot cards every day, and I was asking, like, you know, what does the energy of today look like? What do I need to work on to be a better mom? What do I need to do to understand this baby? Like, I was just pulling for very basic, like, energy questions. I guess those aren't that basic, but, like, basically, like, energy questions, asking about, like, my baby, asking about what I needed to know, like, what I needed to embody, to experience and learn during this time of, like, not only physical growth, right? Because, you know, you're pregnant, you're growing, like, exponentially, but also, like, spiritual growth, right? So I started pulling cards, and the way that I really learned how to read tarot is I would look at these cards and I'd look at my day. Like I'd usually do tarot in the morning, and I'd look at my, you know, I'd go through my day and I'd come back and I'd look at these cards and I'd be like, okay, so this is what happened to me today, and this is what this card has like pictures of it on. And I was kind of learning from there of like what the energy of the picture and how it related to my day and like what I was thinking, what I was feeling. You know, I also like read like a few just the guidebook that the Mythic Tarot had come with. And I learned, you know, like swords are more of like your mental capacity. Pentacles has to deal with like material things. Cups is emotions. Wands is like, you know, your action, your energy, like how you're going to express yourself sort of thing. So I started learning, you know, how to apply what was happening to me in my day based on like with the pictures of the card, based on like, and what the, you know, mode of the card, like the energy of the card was. And that's how I was learning how to read. Oh, thank you for bringing me a dandelion, my little one. I had to bring me a dandelion, but anyway, that's not going to stay in my hair. So yeah, that's how I like started to really learn how to read tarot. Eventually, the Mythic Tarot just became more of a family deck for me, and something that like I wasn't resonating with the messages that I was getting from it anymore. Like just solely for me. Like if I was asking something for like me and my husband, I was getting, very accurate answers. Or like, it would be my husband and I would do a spell together, and, we'd just start shuffling the cards, and the one that would come out was either the Two of Cups or the Lover's card. I got more dandelions. But there was like really coupley cards coming out when we were doing things together. Like if I was asking about my kids, I was getting family cards. So I like knew that this deck was not solely meant for me. And I could not resonate with a deck for the longest time. I searched up and down for a deck that I liked, and I just did not like the artwork of any deck. And then eventually, all my friends started using this deck, the Lightseers deck. And at first, I hated this deck. I thought it was cheesy. I didn't really get it. I was like, Lightseers? Like, that's kind of like, oh, all right, like, ooh, like too frilly for me. Thank you, my sweet boy. But I thought it was too frilly. And one day I just really needed a tarot reading, and the Mythic Tarot wasn't doing it for me. I was not connecting with it. So I asked one of my friends who had the Lightseers Tarot, hey, can you read my cards for me? Can you pull a card for me? And she pulled the Fool. And the Fool in this deck, I'll go out and I'll find it in a second. I'll show it to you. But the Fool in this deck is absolutely gorgeous. And I don't know what it was about her and like about that card at that moment, but I knew I needed a Mythic Tarot. I'm not a Mythic Tarot, a Lightseers Tarot deck for myself, because that needed to be the deck that I read from, because it just spoke so like purely to me. And ever since that reading, I've really tried to embody Fool energy in my life. And I know that sounds like funny because it's like the Fool, but the Fool is like unlimited potential. I have actually a whole podcast episode on the Jesus Witch podcast about the Fool. But the Fool is unlimited potential. It's like what you can create, what you can do without any anxiety, without like any like preconceived notions, without any self-judgment, like just the purest form of your energy. And ever since I got that reading, I've just been trying to embody as much Fool energy in my life as I possibly can. This is the Fool card for the Lightseers deck, and this is the deck in general. I would say this is really the deck that I learned how to read tarot on, like very like good, and especially for like other people, because like if you look at the imagery of these cards, you can pretty much tell what's going on. Like the Six of Wands, this is victory. Look at the way that she's holding her arms up. She's embracing the things that she's doing. She's proud of herself. She's getting there. She's trying. Alternatively, you have the Six of Swords, where you see this girl, she's going through a really troubled water. She's going through like really hard times, but the crows, which birds for me are like spirit's leading her through, right? It's guiding her way. And if you look down here, the water's a little less troubled over here. This one's like really like crazy and white and a lot of like waves, and then this one over here is a little bit more still and easy. So that's what that means for me. The Sun, embracing your truest self, like being like very warm, being open, being, energetic, being light. Three of Cups, having people, embracing community, strength, being very confident, but also humble at the same time, letting your confidence come from a place of humility and like, inner peace instead of like arrogance. So all of these cards, like for me, they really just depict what they're meant to mean. Eight of Pentacles, working on the things that you need to do in your life, working on your job, the creative aspects and pursuit that might bring you abundance. So this deck really taught me how to read tarot, just because the pictures are so descriptive and they speak such volumes just looking at them. I feel like this is a deck that you don't even need the guidebook for. Do you want to pick a card? Pick a card. Use your hand and pick a card. Yeah, you're going to pick her because she's right at the top. That's the Three of Swords. This is all about like letting go and actually speaking your truth. I really like the Lightseers deck, not only for like general tarot readings, but I really connect well to Christ using this deck and to like the Abrahamic God and Goddess. I feel like because it looks so real and it looks like the world that they created, they channel through pretty nicely with this deck. And it's very simple the way that I ask Jesus to be in my readings, and the way that I like work, talking to Jesus tarot readings, which is one of the kinds of readings I offer in my Etsy shop. I'll leave a link for my shop in the description description, and for the Talking to Jesus reading, I'll leave that there too. But the way that I ask him to be involved in my readings is I just ask him. In the Bible, it tells us, like, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall not, or you shall find, knock and the door shall be open for you. This is Matthew 6. And for me, if I'm asking Jesus to be present in a reading, if I'm saying, Jesus, be with me, let me ask you these questions, I'm asking and I shall receive, right? Seek and you shall find. I'm seeking answers from him. So he's going to be the one giving me these answers through these readings. So before I do a Talking to Jesus tarot reading, I'll just do a little bit of a prayer, recite that Bible verse. Sometimes I light a Jesus candle, just one of those pillar candles with his face on it. Sometimes I don't. It depends on my mood. But really the biggest thing for channeling Christ or channeling, the Abrahamic God in your readings, or even the Abrahamic Goddess, is asking them to be there. If you ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be opened to you. So that's just very plainly, very simply, that's how I involve Jesus in my readings. So now I want to show you a few of the decks that I really like to use. Obviously, I just showed you the Light Seers deck, but another one that I want to show you is the Wandering Star. This is another one that I recommend for beginner tarot readers, and let me flip the camera around and I can show you why. Not only are these pictures very descriptive, and I feel like they also reflect different people in different situations, but not only are they very descriptive, but they have actual keywords on there. So for the Queen of Wands, creativity, leadership, focus. This one's another creativity, union, freedom. The Hierophant card, ritual, ceremony, tradition, structure, knowledge, wisdom, teacher. The Death card, which is new beginnings and transformation, cycles, endings, change. It gives you all of these different keywords so that if you don't necessarily know exactly what these cards mean, or you're having, an ADHD brain day, that's, sometimes I'll use these on a day where, my ADHD brain is a little bit more scattered, but I feel like reading cards, or, I have a couple of orders that I need to fulfill, but I want to read, but my brain is all the things. These cards help. So I really love these cards for that. These are another one that I really love using for my Talking to Jesus readings. They're just so nice. The artwork is so pretty, and then the keywords are so helpful, and they just give a really good reading and a good view of what you're meant to learn from the deck. So with this deck here, the Everyday Witch deck by Deborah Blake, we are getting into a deity-specific deck. This is my Lilith deck. Lilith is the only one that uses this deck. The Abrahamic God and Goddess and Jesus all use these decks. But I also use these for general tarot readings and soul contract readings. These are more of my, what is it called? Versatile cards. I use them for any kind of reading, and they give me good messages. And I think that's because the Abrahamic God and Goddess are my patron and patroness of deities, and then Jesus is my main spirit guide. So I'm always channeling through them, no matter if I'm doing an actual Talking to Jesus reading where I'm at spitting words from his mouth, or just using him as my filter for spirit. But either way, I can use these cards for anything. These ones, my Everyday Witch tarot deck, this is only Lilith. This is for reclaiming your power, figuring out how you can be more confident, figuring out where you can have better boundaries with other people. I love this deck for Lilith. There are so many kitty cats on here. This is the King of Pentacles here. He has a little Taurus, a little ox over here, which I love, and then a dog for loyalty. It's just such a witchy and fun deck. It's so powerful. There's a card in here that has a dragon. Oh, right here. I'm literally talking about her, and she's here, the Queen of Wands. And I absolutely love this deck for Lilith. It makes me feel so confident and so brave. And, if you've gotten a Lilith reading with me, she's a little spicy. So she speaks, her mind. And these cards empower me to do that because I'm a little bit more meek than that. I don't like to call people out as much as Lilith does. So these cards empower me to feel like I'm allowed to speak my mind, and I love the imagery on it. It's very beautiful. There's men in here, and there's more masculine leaning people and androgynous leaning people, but there's mostly feminine people and women, which I feel is important for a Lilith deck, and that's why I love using this particular one with her. The only other deity specific deck I have is the Ethereal Visions tarot deck. I originally bought this deck to work with Loki. I don't know why I wanted to use this for Loki. It's really, really pretty. I don't think think it's necessarily his vibe, but it was a deck that I had wanted for a really long time. And when I was in a metaphysical store trying to pick a deck for him, because I did not want to use I didn't want to use these decks with Loki. I knew he needed his own. So when I was trying to like pick one, he was like, listen, you have a very specific vision here. You've wanted this deck for a really long time, because I've seen it online forever and I've wanted it. It was the first time I ever saw it in person. He's like, it's not necessarily my vibe, but go get it. It'll make you really happy. So I bought this to work with Loki. But I don't do that many tarot readings with Loki. However, I do a lot of tarot readings with Venus. Venus is one of the other deities that I work with, and I absolutely love her. I love doing like self-confidence readings with her, in the sense of like how I could feel more comfortable in my body. With Lilith, I'm like, how do I take my power back? With her, how do I just feel comfortable with what I already have, sort of thing. So I decided to share this deck between Loki and Venus. And when I asked Loki, hey, would you be cool if I shared this deck with you and Venus, if I let her tap into the energy of these cards as well? He said, yeah, I never mind sharing things with a pretty woman. And everybody who I've said that to who works with Loki, they go, yeah, that tracks. So, yeah, I know that was 100% his energy. But again, this is the ethereal tarot deck. It is so pretty. It has these gold detailings. I would say this is more of like an advanced tarot reader deck. Like, you need to know the meanings of the cards to like understand, what each of these mean. But if you do know the meanings of the cards and you're looking for something really pretty and shimmery, this deck is so gorgeous. The last tarot deck that I want to show you guys is the Akashic Tarot deck. This is the primary tarot deck that I use for my soul contract readings, if you ever grabbed one of those with me on Etsy. A soul contract reading is essentially a reading that looks at the energy between two different people, or a person and a deity, to see what they're meant to learn from that relationship, how they're meant to grow, and like what the current energy at the moment of the relationship is, and like how those two energies are meant to intertwine. So like here, this is like the War of the Roses card. This deck comes with its own guidebook. It's very different from any other tarot deck. Like, it doesn't follow the traditional like wands, cups, swords, pentacles suits like the other tarot decks do, but it has its own meanings to every card. And I have created my own like psychic dictionary with this deck, because I'm using it for a very specific purpose. So for me, like on Archangel Raphael, this is a healing relationship, something that's meant to bring out the best in both people and like heal deep traumas and wounds. If I have the Community card, this is a relationship that's meant to bring more people involved in it, like having like a strong support system, a strong friend system, something like that. Spring and Autumn are two people who are very different, but they have the same soul core purposes and the same principal beliefs. Like how Spring and Autumn, they're very different seasons, but like they're essentially like the same temperature, and they have like the similar feel to them. The Queen of Scrolls is somebody who's very like connected to spirit and like very wise, and bringing that kind of wisdom into the relationship. A Reflection card is a relationship that's meant to mirror one another. So there's just many different meanings for these cards, and that's not what the book says. Like, this is just my personal meanings for them, like what I've, through doing readings with them, through like working with these cards myself, this is what I've gained, and the knowledge that I've created with them, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's how I use this particular deck. I love it. It's such a fun deck. This is definitely like an advanced deck, and for people who are using it for a very specific purpose. So that was the little witchy story time that I wanted to do for you about tarot and like all my little tarot friends. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Is that still a thing here on YouTube? Yeah, it's like the thumbs up, right? So yeah, give me a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Jesus and Christian witch content. And if there's anything you want to see on here, leave it in the comments so I can make a video about it. Don't forget to check out the Jesus Witch podcast. New episodes come out every single Monday. I have a free Discord group. I have a bunch of different things. I'll leave all the links for them in the description. You can find my TikTok there, all that good stuff. But anyway, thank you so much again for watching, and I hope this video inspired you to go pull a tarot card today, because they are so fun and they're a great way to connect with spirit, and they're kind of just like texting with Jesus. So yeah, I love them. Oh, and if you want to grab a tarot reading with me, you can do that on my Etsy shop. I offer Talking to Jesus tarot readings, general tarot readings, inner child tarot readings, readings with Lilith, soul contract readings. I have a bunch of different types of card readings, so you can grab them on my Etsy shop, and I'll leave that in the description. All the things will be there anyway. All right. So that's that. That's our like second like official YouTube video. I'm so like proud of myself for getting it done. Yay. But yeah, I hope you're having a beautiful Wednesday, and I will see you next time. Bye.